G'day everyone, and welcome back to the world of Warcraft. Today we'll go through the first detailed build from our combat patrol vid, having a look at what bits we used to put together our Bladeguard Veterans, as well as some ways to scratch build shields and iron halos from everyday household items. If you haven't checked out our combat patrol video, I've linked it below, but the basic concept is that you can build a whole variety of kits using the Black Templar Crusaders squads as a base, and even without the Impulsor, Martial or Upgrade sprue, you can still use these tips to scratch build your own. Now, because an unexpected bout of the old spicy flu floored me and put a bit of delay on the video, I've decided to mash what was going to be two separate videos, one on the shields and one on the iron halos, into the one Bladeguard centric vid to make up for the wait. We're still ironing out some creases here and there, but going forward I think we'll be going for smaller vids, releasing at a faster rate, partly so that they can get out to you guys quicker and more accessible, and partly to stop my ADHD ass going off on a tangent. So, expect a video roughly every 2 weeks from now on, life notwithstanding. So, stay tuned for more, and as always, welcome to the world of Warcraft. To start with, we assembled the bodies as per the instructions in the box, just of the legs, the torsos, leaving off the arms and the heads and the backpacks. Next up we went into our sprues and found all the power swords that we had. So we should have 4 from the Crusader kits, as well as 2 from the Martial itself, giving us a total of 6. If you're doing this with just the Crusader kits, there are power axes in there as well. We cut off the more Templar-esque parts of both the hilt and the pommel, as well as a bit of the chain, and just gave it a bit of a file down, turning it into more of a regular standard hilt. Now, by using the regular intercessor shoulder pads rather than the Black Templar ones, and filing down all these little Templar bits, like on the helmet, you help bring it back to a more generic Space Marine look. With this guy we took one of the chainsword arms that's outstretched, just snipped the chainsword off and attached one of the power weapons on. For the shield arm, we took one of the power axe arms, which was holding a hand in the right position, cut the power axe off and glued it on the other side. For our shields today, we're turning to a different kit. These 4 bits here are the optional shield dome for the Impulsor, but for our purposes, they'll make great collapsible buckler style shields. You don't have to set yourself the challenge of using only components from the combat patrol like I did, and I'm going to share one method I found with you all now. This is a cutlery pack I got from a well-known fast food chain. Let's call them Tennessee Fried Turkey. And in it is a small wooden teaspoon that, with a well-placed cut, is the perfect size for a Space Marine scale kite shield. The Templar sprues come with a variety of different relics, purity seals, symbols, and that sort of thing already on the sprue, ready to spruce up your shields and make it look a little bit less Spartan. You can also go to your bits box, any chapter symbols, Aquilas from like tank accessory sprues, any bits of chain, or anything you'd think would just work well for your model. You can also paint on some details later on or add transfers, as well as adding battle damage. And there are plenty of ways of making a large flat surface like this feel a little bit less boring. Speaking of the bits box, there are plenty of shields from different kits that work really well on these miniatures as well. This one here is a Custodes shield. The Custodes box lets you build either 5 Wardens or 5 Custodian Guard, and as many choose the Wardens, you'll have a bunch of shields left over. This means that any of your mates that play Custodes, they should have some spare, or you can find them online pretty easy. You can also use fantasy shields from Age of Sigmar or Old World, and there are plenty of shields from third-party suppliers, 3D printers, bit sellers and the like. Really, as long as it's got something that fits your particular army and your particular style, you can really use anything, as the rest of the model will tie it back into that 40k aesthetic. To finish off our Bladeguard, we needed some iron halos, and for this we turned to the Black Templar upgrade sprue. There are a couple of banner tops and little skull relics that have these little halo trims on them, and with a little careful cutting they can be repurposed to work as iron halos on the backpacks. You can also have a crack at making your own iron halos out of a bit of rounded plastic and some toothpicks. In this case, I'm using just a standard pen. This one is the rounded rather than having the flat side. you can make a lot of stuff out of pens, and I'll be going through a whole video on just using pens later on. But in this case, you want something rounded, so either a lid or the body itself. And I'm going to start by taking out the inner pen. I'm using a brand new pen because I've already used up all my my old ones, but there are so many different things you can do using the inner tube, the outer casing, the beveled ends, and the pen tips themselves. In this case, I'm just going to be cutting just the end off. We're keeping that aside for another project later on, and then just cutting a ring which we can then slice in half to form a halo. Now it's important to be very gentle with these strokes because the plastic is quite brittle, and if you apply too much pressure it will snap and splinter. So just do long, slow strokes, let the blade do the work, and don't push down on it. Now you're never going to get the straightest cut, but that's pretty good. And we'll put that aside for later on. So these make great rocket boosters, either for a jetpack or a jet bike, and we'll be squirreling that one away later. You can also use them for gun barrels, for things like plasma guns, but we'll go through that at a later date. Now that we've got our end, we'll just file it down just to make sure it's relatively flat. This is just a cheap nail file. It's not the greatest. It leaves it quite a rough marks on the surface, but for something like this, it's perfect. As you can see, I'm using the edge of my finger there as a guide for the saw itself. And there we have it. One ring of plastic. Now it's actually not too bad. Slightly raised on that end, which will give it a quick flatten out. Let's give it a little file out, the circular file. And there we have it. Now, if we cut it perfectly in half, we'll be able to do 2 iron halos, but it might not give us enough room for it to sit tall enough on the backpack. So with this one, I'm just going to cut it just slightly, probably about 55% to one side, 45% to the other, and that'll give us some room to play with. There we have it. Now to get the points, we're just going to cut some ends off some toothpicks. I'm going to cut potentially slightly too long, knowing that we can always trim them down further if needed, whereas it's quite hard to extend them once they're cut. But again, it's just toothpicks. So if you make a mistake, it really doesn't matter. Just do it again. Right, so we got 5. I'm going to flatten off the edge that I'll be gluing. And I'll start off with the one directly on top. I think this one is going to be too long, just by a little bit, so either file it down or snip and then file. So just a little dab of super glue. Just going to set that one right in the center. Make sure it's straight on both axes. Now that our first one's done, we're just going to shorten 2 more so they're the same length or just slightly shorter than main point, and that these two match perfectly. You can try to mark these out. We're using a pen, using your cutting board, but I prefer to just mark them next to each other. You can physically see the size difference. The toothpicks themselves will sometimes be different sizes. Some will be thicker than others. Some will have a more pronounced tip. It's not really a uniform process. It's more just trial and error. And once we've got our 2 extras the size we want, they're going to be going down near the bottom, but still on an angle. Still leaving enough room to put some smaller ones in between. Again, just make sure it is centered on both axes, meaning it looks flush this way and when looking down this way. And once that's dry, we'll flip over to the other side and do it there. And now we have a 3-pointed halo. Now, you could leave it there if you'd like, but personal preference is to put 2 smaller, probably about half as long, in between these 2 here. So we're just going to cut down these last 2, make sure these 2 match, and add them in. Again, if you make a mistake, don't be afraid just to rip it off and start again. Now, once looking at this halo on the Mini itself, I actually think I want these bottom points a bit more horizontal, a bit flatter. So I'm just going to break them off, cut along the glue line, and reattach them. Now I decided to leave this part in the video just to show that it is really a case of trial and error sometimes. And the best part about using throwaway materials like these is that you can just chop and change, and that's okay. And if you decide that at the end of the day it's not what you wanted, you can go back and do it again. Or even if it's beyond repair, you can just throw it out and start again. All you've wasted is time, and even then you haven't really wasted it because you've learned something. And there we have him, one 5-pointed halo. If you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Being a new channel, it really helps the algorithm. And chuck a comment down below of what you'd like to see us do next. In the meantime, you can check us out on Facebook or on Instagram. And until next time, happy paw crafting.